In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the rear brakes, pads, and rotors on this Subaru Forester. Just so you know, you do need a scan tool so you can retract the electronic parking brake. So as long as you have that, let's get started. In order to correctly retract the pistons on the rear electronic calipers, if your vehicle has them, you're going to want to turn the ignition to the on position. Don't start the engine. Connect the scan tool that is capable of servicing the electronic parking brake module. And once you have it connected and it's reading everything, go into special functions, electronic parking brake. You're going to want to scroll down to Subaru. It found the vehicle. Going to brake control, special functions, brake maintenance mode, and there you have it. It just retracted both motors, as you heard. There's nothing left on the screen. So I'm going to shut the ignition off and we can do our job. We'll come back to this once we're ready to reactivate or recalibrate the parking brake. With our parking brake successfully retracted, let's use a 19mm socket, remove all 5 lug nuts, and pull the wheel off. Sometimes the wheels get stuck a little bit from corrosion, so tap it, take it off. On the outside of the caliper, you'll see a spring that goes around it and hooks into these 2 ears of the caliper. You want to use a pry bar and pop this out carefully. Make sure it doesn't go flying. We will be reusing this. Unless it's in poor condition, then you're going to want to source a new one. Take this out, set it aside. Now what we have to do is remove these 2 caps, plastic caps, that cover the area that the slide pins bolt on through, and the pins actually are these right here. They go into the caliper bracket, and these caps just make it so debris doesn't get in here. This is also where the head of these slider pins is. You'll need a 7mm Allen socket to break these free. They shouldn't be very tight. Make sure that's fully seated and unthread it. Don't go all the way, leave this in a few threads so that we can do the top one without this caliper swinging up and out of the way. And before we completely remove both of these, I'm going to pop the bleeder screw cap off, set it aside, and with a 10mm wrench, I'm just going to break free the bleeder screw and snug it back up so fluid doesn't leak. However, but doing this will make it easier to unthread the bleeder screw when the caliper is off so we can push the piston back and let fluid come out through the bleeder screw. Finish removing the 2 slider pins. Once you're on the last thread, you're going to have to just push them manually. Take the caliper. The caliper might be a little bit stuck because of the pads being seized on here. So just pry it away. Work it evenly, top and bottom. There it is. Nope, the inner pad fell out. That's okay. I'm going to have to pop the outer pad out as well. It shouldn't be this stuck, but in my case it is. Finish removing the slider pins and set them aside. We're going to clean them up later. I have this hose that goes on the bleeder screw so it doesn't make a mess on the floor. If you don't have this, use a collection bucket. Take that 10mm wrench and open up the bleeder screw so we can now retract the caliper piston. Just open it about 1 full turn. That should be plenty. Fluid will start dripping out, as you'll notice. Use your caliper depression tool, slide it in the middle, and press on the piston, which you'll see right there, and you'll see fluid coming out the bleeder screw. Go slow. It should take very, very little pressure to do this. If it's difficult, that means the caliper piston is seized and you need a new caliper. I've bottomed it out completely, so I'm going to remove my tool. I'm going to give this about 10 seconds to bleed out any potential air that may have gotten in. At this point, I can close it off and we can continue with our job. Now when you close this and you snug it, you just want to bottom it out and give it a little bit extra because these are small and they can break or even round off. So that's bottomed out, a little bit extra, that's plenty tight. I'm going to remove my hose. If any brake fluid's spilt, clean it up with brake parts cleaner. And cap this off so no debris gets in there. Now set the caliper aside, and you can't really go very far with it. All you can do is kind of pivot it back. So on the bottom it has the connector for the electronic parking brake, and on the top it's got a brake hose. And these two right here, this and this, are going to be your caliper bracket bolts. So that's what we're going to do next, and you are going to have to just keep moving this out of the way as needed. I don't recommend unplugging this just so it doesn't confuse the computer, so just move it aside. Use a 17mm socket to break both of these free, starting with the top. Once you break it free, in my case, I can remove it by hand, which is great. Take that out and get to the bottom one. Take this out, remove the caliper bracket and set it aside. Now you can remove the rotor. If it's stuck, use a hammer. Just don't hit the lug studs, of course. Either hit the surface of the rotor or right between the studs. Now we have to clean up the hub surface. It's not in horrible shape, but it is rusty. I want to get it nice and cleaned off, and we can apply anti-seize at the end, which is anti-corrosive. It'll prevent it from rusting, and it'll prevent the new rotor from seizing on in the future. To clean this off, you can use a wire brush, a sanding disc, or even a wire wheel on a drill. Whatever works for you, get this nice and clean, but of course don't dig in with an abrasive sanding disc and remove a lot of material. Now we're going to use some anti-seize and cover the surface of the hub in it. This is, like I said earlier, going to prevent rust, and it's going to prevent the rotor from seizing on in the future. So go around this center area of the hub here, around the ring, and as well as all of the area that you cleaned up. You want it covered, not with a lot, because if you put too much, it's going to squish as you put the rotor on and fling out. You just want a nice thin layer that will protect it for a long time. Now right there looks good. Now take your new rotor and a clean rag with brake parts cleaner on it and wipe down the surface on the back side, the braking surface that is. That way you get all oils off that are there from the factory. And I'm going to wipe inside as well. Just get it all nice and degreased. Slide it over the hub. Do the same on the outside braking surface. Brake parts cleaner and wipe it off. At this point, to prevent the rotor from falling off all the time, I'm going to use an axle nut as a spacer and a lug nut just to clamp it on. You don't need to make it tight, you just need to prevent it from falling off continuously, because that's going to keep getting in your way as you work. On this bracket, there really isn't much to clean. These areas don't even have anti-rattle clips. It's just the metal bracket that the pad sits on with basically kind of like a hook on the end of the pad. So we just have to wire brush this and clean it up. I'm going to spray a little bit of brake parts cleaner to minimize the dust. And clean it up the best you can. Once you're done cleaning, rinse this off with the brake parts cleaner. And after it has dried, apply a very thin layer of brake grease, or what I'm using is brake rated silicone paste. Now, it's not my favorite thing to add grease here because it's out in the open. It's not underneath anti-rattle clips as a typical caliper would be. But I did just clean, and this is bare metal. And if I leave it like this, it will rust really fast. So I have to coat it with something. Now you don't want to put too much because you don't want it to squeeze out and get all over the rotor. You want to avoid that, of course. Flip it over and do the same thing over here. Now this caliper bracket's ready to go back on the vehicle. Bring the caliper bracket in, have a bolt ready to start it on so you can secure it. Start in the lower one as well. The torque on both of these bolts is 54 foot-pounds. There's one. And number two. Slide the pads in. The inner one right here. It should slide in no problem. And the outer one right over here. Now I should mention the outer one does not get a wear indicator at all. On the inner pad, the wear indicator should be on the bottom. So make sure you don't confuse them. Now you take the caliper, slide it right over. When it comes time to greasing these pins, you want to clean them up. Mine are pretty clean to begin with, and you just want to put a very thin layer of brake grease or silicone paste that is rated for heat on the flat part of these pins. Try not to touch the threads. You can't put too much because it'll just get basically wiped off as you try to put it through. Now, just as a little bit extra, I will put some right inside the boots here, but you can't put too much because there isn't much space for a lot of grease, and you don't want it getting all over the place. So you just want to lightly lubricate everything. Once you've added your grease, get the pins through. Press the caliper on. Start threading these on. "18 foot-pounds is the torque for both of these. Don't forget to cap these off so that debris doesn't get in there and the grease doesn't get washed out. Make sure everything works smoothly. Lastly, take that spring that we removed at the beginning, slide it into one end, and hook it onto the other end as well. These are not very powerful springs, so you should be able to just use your fingers and push it over. But if you need a flathead screwdriver or a little pry bar, go ahead and do that. And you want to just make sure that it is fully pushed in these two areas. This is supposed to slide on here, so that's normal. And this brake job is complete. Now you would do the same exact thing on the other side, and then get your wheels on. And if you used a lug nut to hold the rotor on, now's the time to take that off. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and also in a cross pattern, we're going to torque them to 89 foot-pounds. Once again, 89 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check them all. We'll plug in our scan tool again and go to Special Functions, EPB, and we'll scroll down to Subaru, Brake Maintenance Mode. It says that brake maintenance mode is in progress, which is true. So we're going to click OK to finish it. Returning to normal mode, OK. It's asking if everything is installed correctly. Yes, it is. Depress the brake pedal slowly until the full stroke is reached. Pump up the brake pedal a few times. That way the pads can seat slowly. So as I pressed hard on the brake pedal, it activated the parking brake and disengaged it at the same time. So at this point, it is returned to normal mode, so we can turn the ignition off and check the operation of the parking brake. So I'm going to turn this off, and just to double check, I'm going to turn the ignition back on, apply the parking brake, perfect, and disengage it. Everything works as it should. Now let's top off the master cylinder with brake fluid. Under the hood on the driver's side of the engine compartment, right by the firewall, you'll see your brake master cylinder with that yellow cap. If there's any debris around it, wipe it off. This one is very clean. So remove the cap, and you'll see that it says .3 brake fluid is all you're supposed to use in this system, which is perfect. We're gonna add some until the level's right at this line. That's the full line. It's hard to see, but if you shake the reservoir, you should be able to see the level. It's right about here now. So that is full. Let's cap this off. And there we have it. Job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.